Okay, first of all, what we'll just start with, the general question is just your bit of your background in music. So what sort of music were you into? Like what sort of tunes were you listening to? What sort of bands were you into before you got into a band? Like, what's your history of getting into music?
Me personally, I suppose I started listening to... I think I got into hard rock a lot when I was younger. A lot of bands like Guns N' Roses and Bon Jovi, and a bit of punk stuff like Mass Appeal. And I suppose I think I've always really been into heavier music, and then it sort of just continually to get heavier and heavier, and getting into bands like Obituary, bands like Integrity. Then a whole lot of Christian bands started coming out, bands like Strong Arm and Overcome and Focused, and I suppose that's really where I came from musically, and those kind of bands just inspired me to do something that was like Embodiment, I suppose. Bands like Obituary, bands who weren't Christian actually inspired me to do something that in the style of music that I really liked, but with a positive message and something that reflected what I was as a person and where I was coming from as a person, I think.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that I can remember myself listening to, and I was just obsessively listening to, because I got this album and I got a set of headphones, was Michael Jackson Thriller album, and I was 5, and me and my brother, and I was listening to, my brother's a bit older, so I was a little listening to what he was into, so we were listening to Michael Jackson Thriller album. That was awesome. That was when I was back in Wales. I was about 5. And then we discovered Iron Maiden after that, which was, a big leap from, high falsetto to more high falsetto, but with some, great riffs in there, and some tight pants. And then after that we discovered Barren Cross and a few Christian bands. Stripe, I couldn't get enough of that cock rock, it was so good. That sort of stuff. And just a lot of Christian metal and a few secular bands as well, and older heavy bands, death metal bands especially. And I think the first gig I went to was at the Century Hotel, and then we discovered like Light Force even before Mortification existed, me and my brother, so we heard about Light Force and we went to that show. That was heaps of fun. I was about 11 by that time, I think.
Yeah, my first album that I owned, I convinced my grandpa to buy me Iron Maiden Killers when I was about 8, and I think he knew what he was buying at that point. And then it was AC/DC High Voltage, and I think Pink Floyd The Wall, and a few more Iron Maiden albums, and then around about, I don't know, sort of, I was Metallica, Ride the Lightning, and then sort of late 80s, early 90s, started listening to like Tourniquet, Stop the Bleeding. That was the first Christian band I had at all, like metal band.
Classic album, that one.
Really good.
Yeah.
Terrible guitar sound, but really good album. Yeah. And
Because I was a musician.
and I think I just remember sort of hearing like the first Mortification album. Greg had the first one, and so we kind of listened to that hell of a lot. And I think I had some crusty demo, the Paramecium demo.
Yeah.
They recorded the vocals in a toilet bowl.
The famous toilet bowl.
But I listened to that hell of a lot, and it was just scuzzy stuff like that. And then I don't know, heaps of stuff since.
Yeah. See. All right. And from there, like, when did Embodiment form? Like, what year did Embodiment form?
That's a bit of a funny one, actually, because
that's the question.
Yeah.
Is it 10 years? Have we been doing this 10 years or 11?
I reckon it's, playing live, I reckon we've been doing that, like 10 or 11 years, but I think we're actually formed before that.
Yep.
Because you and I actually met through my sister to begin with.
Yep.
And then we actually sort of formed the band when I met him at a Mortification gig.
Actually, I think it was that gig that I was talking about before. I think we actually met at that show. It was a Light Force show, even before that Mortification, at the Century Hotel. And I kept seeing you around, like.
And then we formed it basically when that show at the Lion Arts Theatre.
Yep.
And I can remember he was wearing a Harley Davidson t-shirt.
Who was?
Aaron was.
No,
and then basically from there, like, my brother, he played guitar, and we've been wanting to start a band for ages. And a couple of guys, one other guy from my church called Luke, and a friend of mine called Justin, another Christian guy. We basically formed the band, and it took us about 3 months to actually play a whole song. And it just...
Our first song was a Mortification song.
So what year
That's
was that?
right. What was it again?
92.
It was
the really slow one.
Journey of Reconciliation.
That's
what it was. We jammed a Mortification cover.
Yeah.
And
let's say, I'm 26 now. Let's say 12 years ago. So whatever that is.
Yeah, at least that. Yeah, because you were really young.
12 or 13 years ago, perhaps.
And basically, tell them the story about the reason why Aaron actually started playing drums is a great story.
Here's one for you. Like, because I was...
This is definitely God working here, I think.
No, like, because I was, like, with my brother as well, we were hanging out listening to music, but we were obsessed with video games, you know, and we bought Sega Master System Plus, and we were obsessed with that thing, and we had, like, Sam's Deli up in Blackwood, and we were pumping $60 a week into that place, just playing video games and eating chocolate. And then, so I started going to the shops at the competitions and doing the circuits, playing the Sega competitions. I actually got to the Australian Championships, right? And I got to it, and my mum said, look, I got this $400, you know, and all I wanted was a Mega Drive. Wanted to update to the Mega Drive. I was over the Master System Plus, and this dude at church, Mark Bailey, goes, "I got this drum kit," and I just don't know why, but I just go, "I want the drum kit." Mum's like, "You know, we're going to regret this because those things are so noisy, but you know, we'll get you the drum kit. At least that's constructive." And so, I got the drum kit, and it was a week after. I reckon it was about a week after that morning
totally.
that Life Force show that you asked me. You rang me up. You saw me at church or something. Your church, dude. I heard you got. Yeah, you rang me up. I heard you got a drum kit. How did you find? I don't know how you found it out. Do you want to join my band? Yeah, I'll join a band. I hadn't even jammed on the drum kit yet. And that first jam was the day that I was meant to be at the Australian Championships for Sega, and I forgot about it because I was rocking out. So that's how I started playing drums.
That Light Force gig, that must have been earlier than '92.
Yeah.
Because Mortification's first album came out in 1990, didn't it?
Oh, Mr. History of Rock has got it. Yeah, a long time ago.
So yeah, we jammed probably for about 2 or 3 years and went through about 3 different bass players before we actually played a show.
In Luke's shed up at that property that he had. Yep. And we had these 15-watt amps, and the thing is, I had to turn them down because I was playing so quietly. Like, you know, like I was like, yeah, it was pretty sad, but we were loving it. Yeah, we're rocking out. This is awesome. Turned down a little bit.
And by the end of it, we were sort of trying to turn our stuff up to hear over him because he plays so loud.
Ben had a Boss heavy metal pedal, and then he went upgraded to the Metal Zone pedal. Woo! Yeah.
Dude, I've still got my heavy metal.
So yeah, that's basically the beginning origins, and our first show was actually at Mike's, who was one of our guitarists. He left about a year or so ago.
Was that his house?
His 21st birthday,
21st, yeah.
And that was our first show. And then he ended up joining our band probably about 2 or 3 years after that, I think.
Yeah. I remember I was freaking out because we played in the lounge room at that show, and back then, like, you know, because Shane Charlesworth, who was pretty involved with the underground years ago and stuff like that, he was there, and Shane was there, and you know, and Shane was managing Discarnated, who Mike played with, and Extremis rocked up, and some of the guys from Slade's playing, you know, all these metal bands that we were worshipping at the time that we'd go and see at cartoons or wherever. You know, it was called The Venue at that time, and they were there and just playing this show in this little lounge room and just peaking, so just, you know, nervous. All these big heavy dudes just looking at us.
I've actually still got that recording, that show on tape.
No.
Yeah. Well, our friend Justin, who was actually in the band before we actually played a show, he was obsessed with recording stuff, and anything that he heard, he would tape it and bootleg every show that he went to, and he's got a whole lot of stuff that he bootlegged of us. And I listened back to it, and it's actually not that bad. It's actually got a really good, like, raw feeling to it, and very infantile, but, you know, it was kind of cool to listen back to it and just go, wow.
I shudder to think.
See, all right. Can you have a quick look at this camera then? Just shut down.
Out in the kitchen. Remember you and Ben, and there's someone else, I think there's Kelly there as well. There's a photo of him and Ben rocking out, and he's singing and Ben's playing guitar. And they're 5 years old. Crazy.
I remember I used to sit in my room to Vengeance Records, like that first Vengeance record.
Vengeance Rising.
Yeah, and I used to practice singing over it. There's this one riff that I really liked on the last song, I think it was, and I used to just get this one bit, and I used to make up my own lyrics over it because I had no singing over it.
I remember Ben.
And I used to just make up these lyrics over it and record it and just see how my voice sounded and play it back and keep working on it.